Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Xobin Talks, where we discuss about recruitment, hiring process, AI in hiring, HR tech, and much more with top HR leaders and experts. I am your host, Aman, and with me today, we have Deepali Jain, an HBR Advisory Council member of Harvard Business Review, a global HR leader, an ICF ACC coach, a startup mentor, and an AI enthusiast. Deepali, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Aman. Lovely to be here.
Dipali, can you please introduce yourself to our audience, whatever you have done, whatever you have achieved, so that they can also know how fantastic your journey was till now.
Thank you, Aman. I think I can start off by saying I feel we're all a work in progress. But with that, I started my journey 15 years ago as a management consultant, focused around the human capital space. And through that, I worked on a variety of areas from HR technology to talent to leadership, culture, mergers and acquisitions. And I did that for a decade across multiple consulting firms, PwC, Deloitte, Accenture, and IBM. I worked across 3 continents, which took me across 10 plus countries. And I feel very fortunate to have had that experience and exposure to both senior stakeholders and a variety of businesses, from enterprises like big clients to small and medium companies, as well as family businesses across a variety of industries. Post that, my last tenure was with the Decode Group, where I spent 5 years across 3 different roles, from chief of staff to a P&L leader and heading transformation office for them for the region. So it's been an exciting journey. Every day I learn a lot, and that's why I'm excited to be here with you to share those and also learn back in the process.
Fantastic. You had such a fantastic journey from coaching to mentoring to shaping global HRs. Dipali, I just wanted to ask you what inspired you or your journey into HR and people analytics?
Yeah, so I think, if you really think about today's world, the fact that, the war for talent is no longer even being talked about, it's become business as usual. And the speed and accuracy of, what we are trying to achieve from a people agenda is asked about like never before. So for me, when I really looked at when I started off my journey years ago, the fact that people are the heart and soul, from my perspective, that drive a business and drive an organization. Yes, we need sales. Yes, we need products. Yes, we need technology. But who's behind it? It's people. And I think, like in a world that we are living in, which is probably never seen before, in a good way and not in a good way as well, I feel the importance of how we actually utilize that talent and our people, and the potential that I feel is underutilized in some cases, is what brings me joy every day, and which is my motivation to be in this field.
That was amazing, seriously, and you're 100% right. Actually, you know what? So AI right now, everybody is using AI. Even like HR is also using AI, right? So I just wanted to ask you one thing. Right now, AI is changing the hiring landscape, right? So from your perspective, what does smart hiring truly means in today's context?
Great question. So I think for me, the first thing is it's a mindset. You know, tools, technology is of course here to stay and changes, but the very first thing is our ability to think differently and act differently. With that, using AI really means that we are, as individuals, as human beings, can become smarter in what we do by using these technologies. For me, as cliched as it might be, it is actually really not about replacing. It is about replacing, yes, in areas and elements where we don't like to do that work, or we know that technology or AI can do that work better and faster actually than us, then go ahead and use it, right? Because why would I not get 5 hours out of my day and spend that on human interactions, on building relationships, on understanding and listening to my clients or to my people and trying to solve those problems, things that I feel still there is a long way to go for AI to complement that human emotion in some ways. And so I think that's where smart hiring comes in, is doing and letting AI do what it can do best, is a lot of your administrative, operational, even thinking work. Yes, why not get that help, but use your time for all the human elements, which is actually what will make you more successful as a recruiter and as a business person.
Actually, you know what? So I was, and my team was also very excited for this topic, smart hiring, right? So we had a chance to talk to some of the HRs, and like they had a question which they really want to ask a coach or a mentor, right? And you have a great journey. So I just wanted to ask you this question, personal question of the HRs right now. So, as a coach and mentor, how do you see AI complementing, not replacing human judgment in talent acquisition? Because you recently mentioned that AI and human intervention is, I think, like needed in AI, right? So, what is your opinion in this? So, will AI will be replacing the human beings, or will it complement the human judgment in talent acquisition?
Great question. And the reason I'm smiling is it's actually a personal conflict, if I can say, being a talent acquisition professional myself, that I also feel I don't have an answer to, right? And that conflict is the reality of, let's say, whatever, 50, 100 years of hiring, is the fact that as much as we think that we are objectively hiring, we never hire objectively. There are biases that are built in from a JD, from the start of a JD creation, to a search, to a screen, to an interview, and so on, right? That bias today is human bias, right? Now, the reason for the conflict is because now we're entering a day and age where that conflict becomes, or that bias becomes an AI bias. Because now, with the advent of all the tools in the market, and yes, whether companies are using it or not, or using it to some extent and not to a large extent, whichever ways. But what you're then doing is, when you use these tools, as we all know, based on how they're trained, based on how it's written, a JD might be biased based on how and what the tool has been, or what the AI tool has been trained on. The same, how it's screening, it's searching, and even interviewing, which we know, like all of these processes today AI can do, right? And there are AI tools that support. But what goes back, and honestly, I don't think that level of transparency is there within the tools to know how for those tools being trained to know that they are not bias free, right? So I mean, my personal ingoing assumption is they are now holding an AI bias. So the conflict is, and that's why I don't have the answer, is a human bias better than an AI bias, is or is it worse? I don't know.
100%. Actually, like even we can understand that because ultimately we are using generative AI to make HR's life easy to hire and better candidate, actually, right? So I wanted to ask you a question, a simple question, which is it's about the AI bias only. So the common concern of like all the HRs right now is if we use AI in hiring, right? There is potential bias algorithms also over here. So, what do you think? How can HR leaders ensure fairness and ethics while using these AI-powered tools?
I think, the first is, I mean, if possible, I would first say that whatever tool you're using, ask for the information and transparency around the tool, right? I mean, whether you understand it or whether you want somebody in your organization that understands, I guess, the technology at a deeper level, but asking that question around that, like what data, I mean, firstly, what data has the tool been trained on? How does the tool actually work in some ways? I mean, at a detailed level, those are the first filters. Now, despite that, going back to my previous point, despite that, the answer might be that it's not bias free. It's probably on a continuum, right? So but at least I think that's also important. I mean, is a particular tool on a continuum like 80% biased or 20% biased? There's a huge difference in that as well, right? And just knowing that and the ability to decipher that, which I think is also early days. There's not a lot of literature thinking work necessarily around that for a common man, right, to really understand and know that. I think the second thing is, that's why, again, because we don't know fully whether a human bias or an AI bias is better, I think, what we're dealing with, or maybe the way forward, is to have both. So, which means that you have to still have, and that is organization dependent based on whatever works and how your culture is, or it could be role dependent. I mean, if there are leadership roles versus, specific technical roles, the extent to which you want human intervention based on the impact that a particular role is creating, or what the job type of that role is. But I think what you're talking about is again on a continuum. For some roles, you could have actually minimal or no intervention, perhaps as well. And for some, you could have a largely a greater human intervention compared to AI, even if you're using a tool, right? So again, that can really, and I think, at least given this transitionary time that we are in, the answer is it should not be a one size fits all. I take an AI tool and I basically apply that to every single role in my organization the same way. I don't think that's the right answer. You have to pick and choose and see in what way you will apply that tool, and where the human interaction comes in.
100%, right. Because what, like, so ultimately, like, our motto is also similar to that. So in Zobin, what we do is, like, previously, HRs used to do a traditional way of calling people to check the communication of a person, right? So ultimately, they have to spend a lot of hours just seeing the resumes or calling that particular person for the communication check, right? And right now, we are using also generative AI in our Zobin tool, with the help of which you can easily parse the resume and check the data of the candidate, like what skills he has mentioned in the resumes. And similarly, like, we have a AI communication checker also with this, right? But ultimately, we also think that human intervention is also needed over there, because ultimately it's a very big decision for you to hire a candidate, right? And because that particular candidate will be working in your organization, and like the organization success will depend on that particular candidate itself, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for sharing.
Right. Also, like, there is one more question. So, with AI becoming more mainstream, what are the key skills future HR leaders must build to stay relevant to these new things which are coming right now?
Yeah, I think there's on that there's a lot of research. World Economic Forum and other places who've really talked about that research, and I think people know that because it's more the human skills, communication, creativity, adaptability, etc., etc. So yeah, so I mean, I won't go into that to a great extent. I mean, I think for HR as well that applies. There's no difference. I think I'll use the question to maybe really talk about the fact that I mean, HR is not the only function, but it is one of the functions from what I've seen so far, where I think you really, a lot of people need a mindset shift to embrace the world that we are in, or actually that's going to be coming in, from an AI perspective. And what I mean by that is the fact that the technology is there to help you to really bring about efficiency and productivity in your day and time. I think it is something that's very important to embrace, to actually bring about to your teams. Do it yourself, as we say, walk the talk, do it yourself, get your team members to embrace it. And rather than feel anxious or scared about, sort of AI taking that work away, I think utilizing that time created because of using AI tools and utilizing it for actually what what HR does best and can do is about building those relationships, listening to your stakeholders, understanding the context of the problems and the challenges, and solving it in a more collaborative and human way using those human skills. So I think those skills can also be brought to life by that mindset shift.
Right, right, 100% right. Like there is a common question, Dipali, which is what are the trends and innovation do you think will define the next 5 years of talent acquisition?
Wow, that's a very very interesting question. I mean, in some ways, if someone was to say, I can myself as well imagine a world where you're basically having AI that is running 80% of your entire TA process. Which means that already, like, from a JD creation to a screening to a search, and highly human elements like interviewing as well, which we know, right? I mean, you can have AI interviewing as well, being done, right? So I think, like, so if I go on one end of the continuum, like that's also a world where I can imagine that basically your human interaction, and of course after that the transactional element of offer or etc etc. So technically you could have zero touch perhaps, as well, if you really want to be creative and imaginative. Now, is zero touch the answer or the right answer? I don't think so. I mean, at least personally, I don't think that's the answer, or definitely not the right answer in my view. And it goes back to the point that I think, if you really ask where the best balance of human and AI, or machine really comes in, is understanding what can it do best, like with people, what are your strengths, and I give that to you. The same way, what is an AI strength, and I give that to AI to do that for my entire process, because I'm leveraging the strength. And I know, of course, or I should know, what is my strength as a human being, and I build that into the process. Because then, to me, what you're doing is you're making that the most powerful process in the best way possible by leveraging the strengths of man and machine, which, with the backdrop of course, taking into account the privacy, the bias, etc, right? So still making sure that it's the most transparent, fair, and the best candidate experience process that you can give, for your organization.
Got it. I have a last question for you, Dipali, which is if you have to give one piece of advice to any organization looking to begin their smart hiring journey, what would it be?
Don't hesitate and start using AI today.
Right, right, 100%. Thank you so much, Dipali, for sharing your wisdom today. It's been an incredible session. And to every listener, we'll be adding Dipali's contacts, example like her LinkedIn profile. You can go ahead and check her LinkedIn and ask whatever question you need to ask to her. Also, if you're looking to bring AI and people analytics together into the hiring process, check out our website, which is www.zopin.com. Until next time, happy hiring. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Aman.